Hello, Sue.
Hi,
I'm glad you
Brigitte.
could make it. And the idea behind this video is very much to give an idea of how two of us, both both Chrysalis Effect practitioners, work, and a little bit about ourselves, really. And also a chance to spend a bit of time together, because we actually quite rarely do. And when we do, it's just great.
It is.
So here goes. I'm going to say a little bit about you, Sue. So Su Winsbury is a Chrysalis Effect specialist practitioner and mentor. She's a well-being coach and a spiritual mentor with extensive experience of working with clients in the health and well-being industry. She has trained in many different modalities and has run her own practice for more than 16 years. Sue is highly intuitive and passionate about the magic of working with her clients on an energetic level using EAM, which is known as the Energy Alignment Method, and other modalities. She also coaches change makers and conscious entrepreneurs in growing their business. Sue's energy work is centered on the premise that all experiences, beliefs, thoughts, and emotions are held within the energy field of our body. These can cause a disruption to the flow of energy and ultimately impact physical health, as well as creating emotional and well-being issues. All too often we are unaware of these issues, which is where the energy work comes into it, identifying the original trigger and then releasing it. So, Sue, that is a pretty impressive start. I've got a few questions for you. So the first one really is, what attracted you to becoming a Chrysalis Effect practitioner?
It was one of those very intuitive things. So I had my own holistic business for quite a few years, and it just kept appearing. It just kept popping up and in emails, and I don't know where it kept appearing, but you know how sometimes you get these nudges from the universe, and I was like, no, I'm not doing any more training. I've got enough things under my belt, and it just kept coming up again and again. And I went to a big holistic showcase, and Elaine was talking there, so I thought, well, okay, I'll just go, and it's 50 minutes, so I'll pop along and see. And from that I thought, okay, I'll just do the one-day event that's following on from this.
Fatal.
I did the one day, and then the rest is history. So it was something that I felt, I loved the idea of niching. I loved the idea of kind of fine-tuning my holistic business from being working with everybody and anybody and whoever would come through my door to becoming much more specific, really becoming more knowledgeable, more experienced in fatigue issues, and such a wonderful approach to healing, which I can also see works for many other different situations. So that was it in a nutshell. It felt very right, and I just love the approach.
Okay, I think you've explained it probably, but just to reiterate that thing, what exactly do you mean by niching?
So specializing.
Right.
So it's having a specialist area within our business, and I think certainly for holistic therapists, well-being, you know, we tend to, and I guess you probably come from a similar background, we tend to just work with anybody and anybody who comes through our door, whereas when we become more of a specialist, we can really focus our knowledge, our wisdom, our trainings, and it just makes it much more powerful, more effective, and we work with certain types of people.
Yeah. And I think that's what's really reassuring, isn't it, for those certain types of people, for that niche market that we're aiming for, that they have actually got a specialist, somebody who really knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that one of your sons has had fatigue issues. How are you able to support him as a mum and also as a practitioner?
It's interesting. So he's now 23. He first started showing sort of quite severe signs of fatigue when he was 18. He was doing his A levels. He was also head boy. He'd had a very, very busy year. He's an extremely high A type. You know, very, very classic case. But I have to say, if I hadn't done this training, if I wasn't a specialist practitioner, I would not have known what the signs were. And I wouldn't have been able to catch him before he fell properly. So it was such a blessing. And I kind of think, okay, universe, that was why I did my training. It was to just be prepared for him. But obviously, when it's your child, they don't always want to hear things from their mum.
No.
So much as, like, I have the training and the knowledge and the wisdom, I have to be very careful how I drip feed it, because it's just, oh mum, you're
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's been a very interesting process. He's actually having a bit of a dip at the moment, because he'd slipped back into extremely high A-type behaviour, and I kept saying, well, you think you might have a crash coming? He would go, yeah, I know, but I haven't got time for it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that will resonate with some people. And now he's actually been furloughed from work, and everything that he was doing has stopped, and so his body has just gone into so it's
quite interesting, that, isn't it? Because I think for many people there's that ability, or that it's actually allowed to slow down a bit just now, isn't it? So it is interesting how that will take us on forward into the future, isn't it? How things will change if they do. So
yes, definitely.
How do you use your energy techniques when working with your clients?
So the energy techniques I use really get deep into our subconscious, into our energy fields, and so often things that we've experienced which will be impacting our health and our well-being, we don't actually have any idea what those things are. So much as I love my coaching, if somebody's got an inherent birth trauma or picked up beliefs from their mother while they're in the uterus, they're not going to have any conscious idea that they're still carrying those within their energy, and they're actually impacting how they feel about themselves, they're impacting their physical body. So the technique that I use most of the time is the energy alignment method. It's very simple. We use the body as a pendulum, if you like. It's got its roots in kinesiology, so I know that, and I know your training, so you understand this, but we literally tap into the energy field. So we come out of people's conscious heads, we come out of the thinking head and more into the heart and the energy, and that side of us doesn't tell us any lies, whereas our minds quite often distort, delete, feed us false information. So by tapping into that energy, we just literally follow the energy, and it can pinpoint. It's marvelous because you can pinpoint things to a certain year. Quite often I'll be working with someone when we might find something that is causing disruption in their energy. We'll get to an age and they'll suddenly go, oh, I know what was happening then. And then you just ask a few more questions, and it's a very simple technique to release it from the body. So I love it because it's powerful, but it's very simple.
Okay, so I was going to ask you to give me some examples. I suspect you've already done so with that. Is there anything else that comes to mind with that? Is it the other techniques you use?
I think, for some people I'll use EFT or tapping, because some people prefer that as a technique, but certainly with EAM, we're also carrying, everything that we're carrying isn't necessarily our own, I like to call it stuff, because that's the best word I can think of. There's been a lot of scientific research that proves that we carry up to 7 generations of emotions, experiences, thoughts, beliefs within our DNA. So if you think about your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents and going back, you've got all of their little things caught up in incidents, already caught up in our energy. And we know that, as women, we're born with all our eggs already inside us. And so logically, if you think, well, okay, so my mum was born with her eggs inside them, and they would have been impacted by what her mum was thinking and experiencing at the same time. And so it's very sensible and logical how that gets passed into us. And again, we tend to carry all that in our energy. We tend to see, you can quite often see repeated patterns of behaviour going through several generations, and so it takes different approaches to be able to really fine tune and hone in on those and release them, and it's very freeing when you do. Most people say that they feel lighter.
Yeah. Something you did for me quite recently was, because I'm also now starting with EAM, but it was something you said about very often just going straight into something, not necessarily having to explain the ins and outs to your client, because sometimes it can detract from the moment, can't it? So I know that one of your techniques is very often just to go with your intuition and think, well, I'm just going to introduce you to this and see how you feel. We can discuss it afterwards. And if you don't like it, I'm sure you'll tell me straight off. But that was very interesting. And I very much took that on board, that you'll intuitively introduce something and hope it works. And very often that does just work, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's great when quite a lot of people will say to me, this is really weird, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
This is very weird, and I'm just, that's fine, go with it. And at the end of the session,
I suppose that's what I meant, that you've already preempted that and said, look, it is a bit weird, doesn't really matter why, but yeah.
But trust me. But then at the end of the session, they'll quite often say, I have no idea what happened there, but I feel amazing.
Perfect.
So it's ideal. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your big vision for the future, Sue?
Well, my big vision is that everybody can understand what is going on in their energy and have techniques that they can use on their own to release it, because once people have experienced this, it's something that they can do at home. They don't have to have somebody with them to do it for them. And I think it's very much about empowering people to understand the true magic of their energy and to be able to work with it and work through their own things. And sometimes I still work with other practitioners, so we can't always see things ourselves. So if I've got a bit of a sticking issue, I'll ring up one of my friends and say, look, can you give me a hand with this? And it's always highly effective. But for my big plan, or my big vision, would be for everyone to understand how important their energy and their subconscious really is in their health, in their well-being, in their approach to life, and to be able to make it really as clean as possible.
Well, I'm really pleased you came first to the interviews, because frankly, that would be my vision as well. But I suppose because we do the same sort of thing, it's what you would expect, isn't it? That ability to empower your clients to move forward and protect themselves. So that was fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Good. Well, over to you.
Thank you. Brigitte, hello.
Hello, Sue.
So we've known each other for quite a few years, and it's just really good to get to know you even more, which we have been over the last year or so, I think, haven't we?
Yeah.
So for those who are watching, I would love to introduce Brigitte. She is a member of the Federation of Holistic Therapists, and she's trained as a health kinesiologist and has qualifications in nutrition advice, anatomy and physiology, counselling, and business and management skills. So quite a nice little toolkit. Brigitte has been a Reiki master practitioner since November 2000, and since qualifying as a wellbeing coach and becoming an accredited Chrysalis Effect practitioner, she specialises with people with chronic exhaustive conditions. Brigitte is also trained in family dynamics and has undergone specialist training to be able to work with trauma and adverse childhood experiences, which is so much needed. The approaches Brigitte uses are to trace the cause of the body's energy imbalances to its root, going deep within our psyche. Our natural flow of energy always tries to move towards perfect well-being. But when faced with difficulties in our lives that we find too painful to accept, we tend to hold on to this unresolved energy in our body. And this creates imbalances in our energy, which then depletes our vitality and can lead to lack of well-being. All of which totally 100% agree. Brigitte is now currently training in EAM, the Energy Alignment Method, of which I'm also a practitioner. So it's great to have her learning this fantastic modality. So tell me, what sparked your interest in this field of work?
Right, well, it's a reasonably short story in that I've always been alternatively minded when it comes to anything medical, really, because in the past when the children have been ill or we've been ill, conventional stuff doesn't seem to work. So I'd always looked elsewhere. And in fact, when I look back, my mum was quite alternative. I had a French uncle who was a homeopathic professor. So I can remember being packed off to France for some homeopathic remedies when I was, quotes, difficult. Difficult to imagine, really, isn't it? But
I had a difficult phase too, but didn't get packed off anywhere.
My mother tackled it two ways. I can remember going to the GP in this country when we were back here, and because I was difficult, and I can remember being in that consulting room thinking, well, why am I here? And does it not reflect on her? Anyway, so I was difficult at that point. But then he got nowhere with me. Well, I don't think he tried, actually. And then I was packed off to France and stayed with my uncle, and he gave me a few little white tablets. And here I am now, perfect. So it's that. And then both our children have been ill. And on both occasions, it was kinesiologists in different countries that I came into contact with. We were on both occasions, and there's 2-3 years dividing this, separating those periods of time. And they both offered kinesiology treatments for the children, who at the time had absolutely no idea what was going on, so didn't have the nous to say no. So that's where the interest comes from.
Fantastic. And I love your story about being difficult.
It's great, isn't it? Oh.
Interestingly, I used I've always been a big fan of complementary alternative, and used homeopathy with my son when he was having hay fever, and he was 6 years old, so he had no idea what was in that little white round top tablet that he took, and his hay fever was just amazing that year. So there's so many different therapies that we could all explore.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to rein ourselves in sometimes, don't we?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about health kinesiology. What does that mean? What do you do?
Right. So it's another one. You've already sort of introduced the principles with the EAM, in that you use this method of working out what your subconscious wants. With health kinesiology, we actually use a muscle, the arm muscle, as a diagnostic tool, I suppose, in that in the same way as with EAM, you sway backwards or forwards. With kinesiology, we use a very slight sway in the arm to see whether there's imbalance somewhere or there isn't. So it's a deeply relaxing treatment. You're on a couch, and I get whatever information I need at that point from being guided by your arm, really, whether it feels wobbly or it doesn't. And then, as with everything we do, it's really individually tailored. So although I have a menu that you then follow, I'm just using that arm as a pendulum, as a sway, however you want to see it, to point me in the direction of which particular correction is useful for that day. So we can use magnets, we can use essential oils, sometimes to sniff, sometimes they're actually just placed on the body. All type of things like this. I always find it incredibly difficult to try and explain how it works, because however much you explain, which is why I go back to what you were saying about the just lie back and take it and you'll see approach is sometimes a lot easier, because you can get so bogged down in trying to explain how it works that you've lost that person, sometime before. And I tend to finish as you, people go, oh, wow, no idea what you've done, but I feel so much better. And I suppose also one of the great advantages, and again, we could do this with the sway, is to find out what supplements are correct for that person. You can actually look for specific dosages. You can look at their diet. Would they be better introducing this particular food, taking that food out? So there are all sorts of things, because we test verbally once we've balanced somebody. We can ask pretty much anything to which you can get a yes or no answer to. So I'm hoping that's gone some way to alleviating everybody's fears as to what it is.
And I just think the body is such an amazing diagnostic tool. When we listen to it, when we trust it, it speaks truth time and time and time again, doesn't it? It's just it's incredible work to be doing. So tell me, are you able to do your work virtually? So in these current times, can you use kinesiology online?
I can use it online. It's not my first port of call from that point of view, because although I've done a lot of distance Reikiing, and that is sort of accepted quite readily, I personally am not as comfortable using HK, but I do it, and whenever I've done it, I've been very happy with it. But I wouldn't immediately say, "Oh, yes, let's have a go at this," unless somebody was asking me. I think once they've asked, that's fine. I've got no problem with it. But I wouldn't try and sell it as such. There's all sorts of self-testing, and I've worked a lot with animals as well, so I know that the results, you get results whether it's face-to-face or not. But it's quite a big leap for somebody who has no understanding. By no understanding, I don't mean they can't understand it. I mean they just haven't come across that.
Yeah.
So I do it virtually. And I suppose what I didn't say earlier on is very much that at this current time, both you and I are in, and the other Chrysalis Effect practitioners are in the most brilliant position, because what we offer can be accessed at this very moment. There's no need to feel any more further isolation, or that you're on your own or can't deal with stuff. We are all there, and there's quite a team of us. And as you said earlier on, sometimes we work together, sometimes we work as individuals with that person, but there is a massive team here, pretty much at your beck and call. So I suppose in answer to whether I use HK virtually, yes, I can, but I need to be sort of begged to do that. It wouldn't be my first port of call.
It's just sort of, obviously, we're, as Chrysalis Effect practitioners, we're all used to working online. It's very much how the program has been developed, and that's what makes it such a beautiful system, is that we are all still here and we can work with people all over the place. So as being both of us as practitioners, how do you work within the Chrysalis Effect and with other practitioners? Okay,
so there are several ways, but I suppose the main one is that you are there as a support. So people can come online and they can do the program as a recoverer and just do that on their own. The pitfall with that can be that if there's a bit of if there are sessions or a section of the program that you don't particularly fancy the look of, you can avoid it. We're all incredibly good at conning ourselves that, yeah, we've done that. Don't need to look at it. So that's the first way. You can do it as an individual and just take the sessions as they come along, which for some people is brilliant. And then the second way is to have somebody the only word I can think that comes to mind is sort of goad you along. It's not goading, it's somebody there as a support, but goading kind of gives you the idea of gentle but firm support, so that we don't really, and that accountability again. So the other way is to do it with a practitioner, and there we get much more rapport with the client, and we're able to really tailor it for that individual, to the extent that if you do it on your own, you go through the sessions sequentially. With a practitioner, we can get part way with somebody and say, you know what, I think you need this session, and you can jump them forward, and then obviously go back if it's necessary, but you can jump them forward to a bit that is much more relevant to them at that point. So I think we're worth our weight in gold, frankly. What do you think, Sue?
Absolutely. And the flexibility when you're working with someone and having that team approach, because we kind of call on other practitioners as and when we need them, and as you say, that encouragement, that loving support, but also helping clients or shining a light on where they may be keeping themselves stuck, I think is so important.
Yeah, actually that kind of brings me, sorry Sue,
go on.
Oh, so butted in rather, didn't I? So it kind of brings me on to another point. I think it also shows that we are human, and more than human, that we can't always we don't always feel we're the right ones at a specific point in somebody's recovery. And that's where you can get somebody else involved and say, look, come back to me when you've done a bit of work with this lady, but, or guy, this might be just what you need before we carry on with something else together. And I think that's lovely to show that it's not that we're fallible, but we don't cover everything. Nobody has all the answers. And that's
there's
rather...
no ego, is there? There's no ego when we're in this environment as practitioners. It's not about I can solve everything for everyone. It's just like, this is my skill set, and she's really good at that, or he's really good at that, or that's going to be the best person for you right now. It's just an incredible community, and I think it's rare to find such a supportive and cohesive community of practitioners.
Yeah, definitely, because generally you always think of another practitioner as competition.
Yeah.
Whereas this way, it really isn't. There's a space for all of us, and we all benefit from that.
Yeah, there's definitely no competition within our teams, which is wonderful. So what do you think are the main benefits of being part of the Chrysalis Effect community? Apart from obviously all of us wonderful practitioners and the support.
Kind of thing though, isn't it? Well, with a recovery program, you're taking somebody out of isolation, you're allowing them to be part of a community and connected with others. And I think that's exactly the same for us. So it's just the same, isn't it? We're part of, sometimes as a practitioner, you can feel very much on your own, that not everybody is coming from the same page, and that, what we do can be seen as slightly weird, maybe. Although I hasten to add, it's not in the least bit weird, but it can be seen that way. So it's giving us that connection with other like-minded people. Yeah.
And I think one of the things for me is that the really positive approach that we have to recovery.
Yeah.
So within our recoverers area, it's all about positive support. There's no space for I'm going to say, like some of the other forums, we don't do things like they do. That's my guarded way of saying it. We keep the space very positive, very supportive, and there's always practitioners on hand to give help and support.
Yeah, very much so.